So, welcome back to my channel. This is Dom, and I've returned from Crackcon. So, yeah, back from Crackcon at the weekend, and I have to say, it gets better and better. I love Crackcon very much indeed. It's dear to my heart, and clearly dear to a lot of the community's heart. So for those who don't know, I'm sure most people watch my videos are aware that I'm part of the Plastic Crack podcast on the Monday night, live 2-hour stream, talking rubbish about wargaming with 3 other reprobates. Well, 2.5 other reprobates if the other one turns up. We've now run, well, this was number 5, Crackcon 5 meetup up at Boards and Swords in Derby. And it was an awesome weekend, probably the biggest one we've done, certainly most attendees, biggest number of big games, which was great. And certainly the most amount of money raised, which is all going to charity. So, yeah. Anyway, let's have a look at some of the painting jobs I did before I went. I think they're all from before I went away. Anyway, have a look. So I mentioned in my last update that with Crackcon coming, I needed to paint up some more Prussian Landwehr for the game that I was putting on. So that's what I've been doing. So I had 2 boxes, I think, of Prussian Landwehr from Warlord Games in my stash of opportunity. Originally I was planning to turn them into Opel Cheney because they have pretty much the same uniforms. In fact, they do have the same uniforms. So anyway, so instead of turning them into Opel Cheney, I turned them into Landwehr. So this is another battalion done. Yeah, not much more to say. They're very straightforward to paint, in fact quite boring to paint, because they're just great coats and cross things. They don't have cross straps. They don't really have an awful lot of uniform for them. So these ones I've done as one of the Silesian regiments, and it's ready for the table. By the time you see this video, it probably will have seen action in Crackcon. Now, don't tell anybody, but I painted some French. Yeah, so not sure I got this box. This is a box of the Perry Elite Company French Napoleonic infantry, and I'd sort of half painted them. I don't really know why I had, but I had. And the other day I just thought, right, I better finish those off, get them done. So I've based them again 2 to a base, just to sort of signify that, so I can use them basically as light troops or skirmish troops in any of the Napoleonic battles I fight. They could even work with sharp practice quite happily. They've got the usual voltigeur plumes, and they, I'd say they're not my favourite kit to paint. These ones, they're a bit fiddly. I'm not sure necessarily I like the poses, but yeah, it's done. They'll go in the cabinet and be used from time to time, as I say, when I need some voltigeurs or a light battalion. Although, because there's so many of them with the shooting pose, it's very difficult to actually sort of get these guys to line up in a close battalion. So that's one of the problems, and hadn't really thought through when I was doing them in 2 to a base. But yeah, never mind. They're finished, so more figures for the pile. And yes, another Landwehr Prussian Napoleonic battalion from these glorious, inverted commas, Warlords plastic Landwehr figures, plus a couple of Perry officer types or command group types that are metal that I just included in, just to give a bit of variety to the units, and so I could have some flags. Some questions whether Landwehr had flags, but flags is cool, so they're in my units. So there you go, another battalion done, ready for Crackcon. As I say, these were originally destined to be Russian Opel Cheney, but needs must, and they've been pressed into what they should have been in the first place, which is a unit of Prussian Landwehr for the Crackcon game, which will have happened by the time you have seen this video. So I also had enough to do a small regiment, or small battalion, a Prussian Landwehr with what was left of the 2 boxes I think I had. Again, with a couple of metal Perrys in there, just to sort of provide some command figures for the bases. Not much more to say. I've done they seem to have come, or seem to have worn sort of blue overcoats, black overcoats, or some cases grey overcoats. So I've just done a variety of them, frankly, just to try and keep me motivated to paint through. But that's it, I've got no more, so I'm not going to do any more. So next up, back to ACW with some Confederate cavalry. These are periplastics, done up in a real ragtag approach. Again, as discussed, that's how I like my Confederate forces to look. Mixture of sort of civilian clothes, uniforms, etc., button-up colours and all sorts of things. Now the figures are okay, far be it for me to criticise the Perrys for anything they do, but I wonder whether these are some of their older ones, because they're a little bit samey, but I enjoyed doing them up in the end, actually better than I thought they would, and because they're not really uniformed, I think painting them is a lot easier than it is with some other period cavalry. Based up as usual with my Vallejo mud and tuft approach, and yeah, ready for the table. So I've just got to do some dismounted versions, because in Black Powder ACW cavalry don't really do anything except dismount and start shooting as skirmishers. So yeah, nice figures, done. And then talking about dismounted cavalry, this is another horse holder stand from Rebaut Miniatures, just because I like the idea of having these for each of the cavalry. So the idea is I'll obviously have the mounted cavalry, the horse holder, and then dismounted variants for every regiment I do in the Union and the Confederate forces. So the dismounted ones I'm working on at the moment, but this will be the horse holder for them to match up with the cavalry you've just seen. So there you go. I think it's not much more to say. It's just the three horses that not the best modelled horses, if I'm honest, but they'll do fine as markers for when it dismounts. And one dude who's been left behind holding the reins. Depending on how the fight goes, he may be either unhappy or happy with that idea. Anyway, there you go. So yes, I'm very pleased to finally have finished off the Landwehr, painting through, I think it was either 2 boxes or 3 boxes. I think it was 3 boxes of Landwehr I've done in the last few weeks to get them done for Crackcon. Yeah, great to get off with that. About Crackcon itself, I won't do a huge amount because, to be honest, I was hosting a game, running a game, and I didn't really get around as much as I would like to have done, so I didn't get a huge number of pictures. But I'll put some in here of people's pictures they took of the day, because as I said before, there were, I think probably, well not probably, I know there were more big games than usually at Crackcon. We always try and have a couple of very big games so that multiple participations, and personally I think that's when the visual effect of the hobby is often its best, and we don't, as hobbyists, unless you're very, very lucky, don't get the chance very often to put on a big game, or even take part in a big game. So getting lots of figures on the tabletop is just great. For myself, I did the Battle of Mockern, which was 16th of October, so roughly around the same sort of time as the show was on, which was great, in 1813, part of the Leipzig campaign, and I used again one of the scenarios from this excellent book, Let's Fight Leipzig, by Steve Shan. Just brilliant book, and I picked out one that I thought would give plenty of forces for the number of players that I was expecting to turn up. Now, I knew I had, I think, 4 or 5 players ready to play, but I thought I wanted to make sure we had enough for other drop-ins, and that's the way Crackcon works. You tend to have people who've signed up for various games, but then others that just sort of go around and play what catches their eye, and that's brilliant. So having a game that was a bit flexible around the numbers was perfect. So Mockern was a battle that took place, as I say, in the Leipzig campaign. It was part of the Prussian attack on the French forces. It was basically York's Prussians against Marmot's French. So it was a very interesting game, big game. That was the brief. In fact, the brief was get a shit ton of figures on the table, so that's what I did. The forces involved were, I think it was about 6 French brigades, so about 24 battalions, 4 batteries and 6 regiments of cavalry, largely trying to hold up the juggernaut with the Prussians. The French were real mixed bag. You had an awful lot of Marines there that in the rules, in Black Powder, we were playing Black Powder rules, and in Black Powder, Marines are generally sort of elite troops. So these had stats that made them tougher to put stamina on them, but they were generally small units. So that was an interesting dichotomy for the French, backed up by largely light cavalry, chasseurs and some Württemberg chevaliers was their forces, up against not massively much larger, but quite a bit in terms of manpower, Prussian force, which was about 7 brigades, about 30 battalions of Prussian infantry, 9 cavalry regiments and 5 batteries. The Prussians were similarly a bit different. There was an awful lot of Landwehr and reservists in their force. They had some they had some lead grenadiers and other grenadiers, elite troops, but predominantly, probably about getting up for 50% of their force was reserves and Landwehr. And so it was a classic battle of quality versus quantity. Prussians their mission was to capture the town of Mockern, which was a 3-sectioned village, 3-section built-up area, I guess you'd think, and or capture the French supply line effectively off one side of the table. If they did the supply line without taking Mockern, it was a minor victory. That was the objectives, and the game was a cracker. I mean, we had a lot of players who hadn't played Black Powder before. Dave Brown was there putting on a game of Pickett's Charge and came over and we had some fun banter over the weekend about the value and the merits of Black Powder. I won't say exactly what he said, but whatever you say about the rules, they are easy for newcomers to pick up, and that was one of the reasons why I chose it as a system. I could have done General d'Armée because it would have suited it for a big game like that over a long period of time, but I wanted something that anybody could play and play quickly without too much help in terms of the rules, and that's what happened. We had a couple of players who knew what they were doing. Me and Ian, who runs Boards and Swords, where we were hosting it, sort of umpired, and we had a lot of very new players, which was great. Not necessarily new in the hobby, but certainly in terms of Napoleonics and Black Powder. We fought through from we started pretty promptly, about 9 o'clock when we set it all up. About 10 o'clock when we had set it all up was when we started, and we played through till about probably about 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock-ish, which I think was a good old fight. It was to and fro. I didn't record the game because it would have been too obstructive, and frankly it was very noisy in Crackcon, so probably wouldn't have made good audio listening. Mind you, most of my videos are fairly noisy because they're done in a gaming room environment. But anyway, it was a real humdinger. The Prussians tried to punch through the middle, and I think their objective was to try and take the French right wing, which was where the supply line was that they had to capture, and sort of try their arm at the village of Mockern if they could, but primarily put their effort behind going for the French right. It kind of became a bit unstuck because the French were blessed with a young lad who was there who could not fail any saving rolls. I don't know what it is about young kids rolling dice, but he was blinding. So he just kept saving things. The French across the line largely passed certainly all their early break tests that they had to do, and just stuck in there for turn after turn. Conversely, the Prussians, while their dice for fighting and shooting was fairly okay, their tests for break tests was absolutely abysmal, and pretty soon they were losing regiments and all over the place, right across the command. And in fact, in the end, their central brigade, one of the bigger ones under Horn, was broken. And that kind of made it obvious the way the game was going. Their advance guard that was trying to take Mockern itself was teetering, and towards the last few turns, the last turn really, that also was deemed to have broken as well, which, even though they still had 3 or 4 brigades on the table, they were all being caved in by these French forces that were then redeploying across the table to deal with the other threats. And the Prussians hadn't managed to push their way through onto the supply line. So definitely a French victory. Prussians would have had to pull away and lick their wounds and try again the next day. But I think everybody enjoyed the day. I certainly did. Umpiring it was really good fun and just lovely to see. I don't care who you are, but I don't think anybody can be anything but excited about seeing a load of Napoleonics on a big table being played and everyone having a laugh. That, to me, is almost perfect world. So yeah, some awesome games, as say, at Crackcon. We've raised a lot of money, which is great. We'll go to a couple of charities. If you're interested in that, listen to the Plastic Crack podcast next Monday night. That'll be on Steve's channel, On Point HQ. And we'll do a little bit more of a deep dive into the event, and also hopefully, if we've got all the bills in and everything, be able to say what we're donating to charity, because say it was the raffle alone generated £1,000, which is just ridiculous. Anyway, enough of that. What else I've been up to? Well, that's about it really. I mean, the week before Crackcon, I did a game with the chaps down at the club. I've put the video up there. We played the Battle of Bartlett's Farm from the ACW Black Powder supplement. There were 6 of us, so it was a bit noisy, a bit tricky to keep up with what was going on, but we played it through really quickly. The gameplay was probably 2 hours, which, considering there was an awful lot of battalions on the table again, or a lot of regiments on the table again, was quite interesting. Alec had come along with his forces, and we used a load of those. And so Bartlett's Farm is the objective in the game is, well, basically the scenario is that the Confederates outnumber the initial Union forces by about 2 to 1, and they have to blast through the initial Union forces as quickly as they can and capture Bartlett's Farm and a couple of other places before Union reinforcements arrive and counterattack. Unfortunately, in the scenario, well, fortunately for the Union, I was playing Confederate, so it was very unfortunate for us. We couldn't get to grips quickly enough, and the Union reinforcements came on much quicker than we expected. I think turn 2, their first brigade arrived, and then turn 3, the next one arrived, and that was a big brigade, and it got 3 moves coming on the table. So, we hadn't even scratched. And no, it's not true. We'd almost broken the Union centre, on which Kenneth was commanding, but almost, and he did a really good job of just recycling his troops and getting commanders to rally off shaken units and so forth before his command did break. Meanwhile, the Union counterattack broke through our left wing, and poor Alec found himself up against a huge number of Union forces, and he had probably the weakest 2 brigades in the Confederate force, and all he could do was just fall back in the face of them, and slowly he got broken. In the end, we lost half the Confederate army was broken. So again, we just said that's it as a day, but it was great fun. Bit difficult to film because it was 6 players and I was in the middle, so I had people on either side of me. It was a bit tricky, but I hopefully it was entertaining for those who watched it. I say, a good game. Not quite as competitive as the previous one, but good nonetheless. No game for me this week. I'm heading up to Ludlow again for a few days. So I might just do, I'm taking some paints up with me, so I may just do a little bit of painting. I'm not sure whether I will or not. Generally I try and just sort of have a bit of relax. So it'll probably be the week after before I get a game. And we're heading rapidly towards warfare at Farnborough, which I'm really looking forward to as well. And I think Martin, well, I don't think, Martin's seventh son is coming over here, and we're going to have a game on the Friday before, and then go down to warfare together. So looking forward to that. Purchasing wise, not an awful lot, if I'm honest. I haven't been here. I bought nothing up at Boards and Swords. Not sure why, really. I think I was just busy. I played my game, and then once that finished, we did the raffle and other bits and bobs we had to do. And then I had a game of Dead Man's Hand, and by then it was time to head off for the curry in the evening. So I didn't really have much time to look at the shop. But Ian gets plenty of my money anyway, so it's all fine. But one thing I didn't show off last time, which I forgot, but you might have seen them in the Bartlett's Farm game, was I bought, you can see these, some of these, I guess they're sort of farmyard things, I don't know what you call them, fields. There you go, fields, that's the word, Dom. So you've got sort of vegetables and stuff down here, and then some corn in there, with some crossbeam fences. So I bought two of these from Last Valley. Another version here. You'll have seen them if you follow Last Valley's Facebook page. Now Last Valley is the guy who comes to a load of the shows and has all these beautiful pieces of terrain. And I buy stuff from him time to time because I just think they're great. He doesn't have a website, so if you're interested, check out Last Valley's Facebook page, and then you can buy through that. They're lovely, really, really good. My only issue with them is they are a little delicate, these fencings. I've already had to re-glue a few of them. Transporting them to the club is, you're taking your terrain in your hands, but really happy with the look of them. I think they work beautifully, and although I've got them for my ACW itch, I think they'll work on other periods as well. Yeah, really good. And they were 20 quid each, which I think is not too bad, considering that's quite a lot of work involved with that. I know I could do it myself, but I'm lazy. So I think that's all I've purchased. I have bought a few figures from Foundry because their price rise hit the other day. I bought something that is an itch that I may scratch in future. We'll see. But if not, they're not going to go off, right? They're not going to go off, so they'll sit there. I'm very excited about the Arthurian book that Warlords are launching for Hail Caesar. Hopefully I can get my hands on that. If I do, I'll review that. Therefore I'm sort of now looking at some of the Wargames Atlantic and Victrix period appropriate figures. I've probably got some 28mm I can repurpose quite happily, but you always need some more, don't you? Anyway, I'll keep looking. That's about it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for everyone who subscribes and follows and all the other good stuff, and thanks to the patrons and the channel members. Very much appreciative of what they support the channel with. So have a really good week. Have a really good games or painting or whatever you're up to. Hope it goes well for you, and thanks for watching, and I will see you again soon. This is Dom, signing out.